Well, Luke, good news. Looks like they're going to release another movie. They've released a few already, and now they're releasing another movie. This one is about The Sims. It's from Margot Robbie, and it's set to include pools without ladders and other lore. And lore is in quotes from The Independent. Are you excited to see lots of Sims lore being explored in a new movie?
Yeah, no, I am so excited.
Yeah, do you know what the significance of pools without ladders is?
Nope.
Okay, so basically it's the... Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke. And this week we are celebrating the end of Brat Summer, of course, by looking at what was the titular movie of last year's Barbie Summer.
So first of all, Brat Summer ended ages ago.
I don't know anything about this stuff. I'm not gay.
No, but you're just not a Gen Zer like me.
Yes.
That is the difference. You're too old to understand.
Wouldn't it be weird if there was a massive age difference between us and it was just never acknowledged?
Yeah, but I thought there was, to be honest. I thought we were doing that. But yeah, obviously we are doing Barbie today because Joker Folle à Deux,
yeah, I do remember this.
However you say it, is coming out soon, and of course Barbie is like the female version of the Joker movie. The Joker is the male equivalent to Barbie, in terms of the audience, in my opinion. And to be honest, we already have reviewed the first Joker movie. We did that some time ago.
Yes, that's true, yeah.
So, and we haven't reviewed Barbie yet, so I don't know, I just came up with this idea in my head, and yeah, it gives us an opportunity to review one of the most, I guess, popular and talked about movies of last year, which we haven't reviewed yet. So yeah.
You know what the only issue is? When Barbie 2 comes out, you're going to be like, oh man, now we've got to review Joker Folle à Deux.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be stuck in an endless loop.
That's how you pronounce it as well.
Folle à Deux.
Yeah. So Barbie is a 2023 fantasy comedy film directed by Greta Gerwig from a screenplay she wrote with Noah Baumbach. I wonder why she wrote a screenplay with Noah Baumbach. That's a weird choice.
Were they married or whatever?
Yeah, that was the joke.
Oh, right. I didn't know that.
So, the movie is of course directed by Greta Gerwig, and is based on Barbie by Mattel. I don't know if you knew that. But
no, I don't, because I'm not gay.
Well, again, that was another joke considering Mattel feature prominently in the movie. But whatever.
I don't pick up on what's in the movie because I'm not gay.
Okay, the movie stars Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling, America Ferrera, Kate McKinnon. I'm sorry, there's Oscar-nominated actress America Ferrera for this movie, of course.
Yes.
Kate McKinnon, Issa Rae, Rhea Perlman, and Will Ferrell. It was released on July the 21st, 2023 in the US and UK. Shout out for Wikipedia for putting the UK there. Don't know why, but we'll take it. And can you tell me, Michael, what the budget was for Barbie?
I felt like this movie was in some degree of development hell. I could be wrong about that. And I don't know whether or not that would impact the budget. Either way, big people in it. 120 million.
128 to 145. Okay, so you did quite well there.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the box office. This is where it gets interesting because, of course, this is a movie that talks about feminism and has a feminist angle to things.
So it's going to go broke. I know where you're...
And, of course, it was directed by a woman.
Yeah.
And, female-directed movies never do well. So, yeah, you are really going to have to, I think, temper your expectations here, Michael. But go on, tell me what was the box office for Barbie?
So I know these movies are really big.
These movies?
Well, sorry, yeah, I don't know why. For some reason, I just feel like there's a movie I associate with this. I don't know... Okay, look, I'm going to say one thing, which is that I feel like maybe some of the hype was around the fact like, oh, these movies did really well, and they're not kind of your traditional blockbusters exactly. So, like, that might walk... Because, for example, like, if a Marvel movie did really well, like, well, they tend to do well. But with that said, I feel like this movie made at least $1 billion, but I just don't know how much higher to go than that. So I'm going to play it maybe safe and just say 1.1 billion.
Ah, wow, you misogynist. You doubt females, you doubt their ability to produce, successful movies.
I know. Yeah. I only went for a 1.1 billion.
Yeah, I know. That's shameful, honestly. You're part of the problem, because this movie grossed so much more, just like women are so much more than what or certainly what you perceive them to be. Because the box office for this movie was 1.446 billion, making it I believe the highest grossing movie of 2023. And if it just been 1.1 billion, I don't think it would have, because I think the Super Mario Bros. Movie grossed higher than that. Yeah. So yeah,
I was I could say this at any point, but this was a rare instance of me actually going to see a movie in the cinema. This film, I went to go see it in Canada.
Yes.
So many months ago.
Yes, this is the highest grossing female-directed movie of all time, by, of course, Greta Gerwig. This.
Well, I would just clarify, of all time, not of all time, just of past time, because there's actually going to be so many. She's really opened some doors here.
Yeah. So maybe that'll be beaten one day, and I'm sure she hopes it will be beaten by a female director who was inspired by her. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Oh, they should make a movie about Greta Gerwig land, where she assumes that all of the aspiring female directors will thank her, but then for some reason they don't.
Okay, yeah. By the way, this was nominated for 8 Academy Awards, among them Best Picture. So, with that said, Michael, did you like the Barbie movie?
I did like this movie. I liked it when I saw it. I think this is one of those movies where it's not, what's the word? Sometimes with a movie, it's kind of. I guess what I'm saying is there's extremes, because there are some moments where I'm like, I don't really like that, but then there are other things that I thought were pretty good. And I also will say, that compared to what this movie could have been, I think they did a good amount with kind of the premise.
So sorry, can I just say, speaking of what this movie could have been, I assume,
Amy Schumer.
Yeah, I assume you know Amy Schumer, but do you know the other actress who was going to play Barbie before Margot Robbie?
Lizzo. I don't know, so obviously a woman.
Yes, you got that one right.
Yes, okay. A woman who's a funnier, kind of crazier answer than Amy Schumer.
Not crazier, just worse, or not worse, just really bad, but in another way.
Okay, so not fat. Yeah. Or I know Amy Schumer's she's not that fat. She's not huge.
No, but, let's start calling women fat. That's great.
I'm just trying to think why it would be really bad in a weird way, like Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
Oh yes, good. Yes. I knew. Yes.
There we go. Yeah.
I knew that you were, because obviously she recently I think did some terrorism in Lebanon. So I was thinking who's a person who's in our bad graces right now.
Gal Gadot turned down the role due to scheduling conflicts. So thank God for that.
Especially seeing she can't act at all.
Yeah, so there is that, and of course the Israel thing. Those two combined together, that's not good.
Yeah. Also, she wouldn't be able to do the whole. There's that line producers, Margot Robbie is not the right person to cast to make this point. They should have done that, but for the fascist line, she said, "I'm a fascist." Producers, Gal Gadot is not the right person to cast to make this point.
Yeah, well, obviously, yes. My thoughts on this movie. Well, you just said it was okay, right?
I would say I'm slightly more enthused than okay. I know that you don't like this movie because you're a humorless misogynist.
Well, I actually found some of the movie funny, but that was the Ken parts,
that's it. Yeah, so yeah. I'm kind of in agreement with you there.
Yeah, so that was Ryan Gosling, and of course the lines written for him were by probably Noah Baumbach, right? Not Greta Gerwig. She had no responsibility at all with how funny this movie was. Now, look, this movie is not that good, honestly, and I don't think it's a bad movie, but I dislike it more.
Was it not hitting you where you live?
Well, yes, there is that, but I also think I dislike this movie more than I otherwise would do for a movie that is this average.
So I'm interested because I'm interested in your specific beef. Now, is your specific beef the fact that you obviously really liked Oppenheimer, and yet every single credible person has on the record said that they much prefer this movie to Oppenheimer?
No, that's why, of course, it won Best Picture, not Oppenheimer.
You've got to bear in mind the Academy Awards aren't credible, Luke.
Okay, yeah, I dislike this movie because of not some of the stances that it takes necessarily, but here's the thing. I thought when I first saw it, this was a year ago. Well, it kind of takes, it has its cake and eats it. It's playing both sides on some issues, and I didn't like that because I think that's quite a cowardly thing to do, and I thought it was pretty pathetic sometimes what I was seeing. And then I saw a quote from Greta Gerwig while doing my research, which backed up what I was.
Well, you're boning up.
Yeah, which backed up what I was thinking. And then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, my thoughts, my feelings are correct on why I dislike this movie, despite it being quite an average, movie overall. but apparently that's a feature, not a bug, in terms of having its cake and eating it.
Oh, I'm interested in this incriminating quote.
Yeah, well, we'll get onto that, but first, how many nitpicks do you have?
One nitpick, one lit pick.
Okay, you go first.
Nitpick. I'm pretty sure, like, I don't know, you could say it's about, like, basically I was just going to say nobody in LA would find that weird, but then you could say, like, I don't know, is the people, like, basically the way they're dressed. Like, you know, obviously LA is famously weird. They call it Holly weird. So, you know, it just doesn't really make sense. Everyone be like, oh, that's weird.
This was Venice Beach.
Yeah, which, I mean, is Venice Beach an especially normal part of LA, or?
Well, it's, of course, where American History X was set.
Oh, yeah, so it's black people and they're kind of no fun.
What?
I liked that Rob Brydon was in this movie, partially because, you know, obviously I wanted to introduce my wife to British humour, and I'm quite a fan of the old Would I Lie to You panel show, and obviously panel shows are quite a fundamental part of British humour on television, so I was like, yeah, you know, we should watch a good few episodes of this panel show, Would I Lie to You? And then, lo and behold, sat there watching this movie, and Rob Brydon's on there, and he's like, you know, he's not in big blockbusters very often, so isn't that fun for him?
Well, there are a bunch of British actors in this movie who are from British TV shows that Greta Gerwig likes. And
oh, really?
Yeah. So there was Cutie Gatwa, who I believe was in Sex Education.
Yes, and he's Doctor Who.
Yes, and there are some, but not when this movie came out, of course.
Yes.
And then there's someone else. I think one of the characters from Ted Lasso's in it. Like he's the Asian guy who's talking to the Mattel CEO. I could be being really racist here, but he's talking to the Mattel CEO about the Ken Dojo Casa houses, you know, selling.
Yeah.
And I think he's in Ted Lasso, which is kind of British.
Yeah, there's a lot of blue names on this cast list, eh?
Yeah, so I think that's why Greta Gerwig has Rob Brydon in it. She must like a show that he's in. So there you go.
Yes, Gavin and Stacey.
Yeah, so my nitpicks. There is a Chevrolet commercial in this commercial movie, which I find to be quite distasteful, honestly. And yeah, then my other nitpick, Oppenheimer, a much better movie, is associated with this movie because of I don't know if you heard about it, the Barbenheimer craze.
Yeah,
that happened. About a year or so ago, and yeah, Oppenheimer is a much better movie than this, and you know, this it just annoys.
So your nitpick is that you hold to this incredibly unpopular opinion that only a bunch of old farts at the Academy think. Because if they were associated, I guess Oppenheimer must have made very similar amounts of money then.
Well, it was one of the highest-grossing R-rated movies in history. So there you go.
Well, you know, R-rated stands for bad. I don't know, Luke. Yeah. Look, let's just get into the plot.
Well, no. So I got a lit pick. I got a lit pick. So, do you know the controversy over the 9-dash line?
You mean like in China?
Yeah, but in this movie.
No, I don't know anything about this movie in the 9-dash line.
So yeah, basically when Weird Barbie shows Margot Robbie, you know, this map of the world, and obviously it's all in crayon, you know, and as Warner Brothers said, it's a childlike crayon drawing. Warner Brothers said it was not intended to make any type of statement, but apparently Vietnam saw the dashes in Asia and was like, that's the 9-dash line. Barbie is promoting China's claim over the South China Sea.
That's actually quite funny, yeah.
Yeah. And I love this from John Richard Shoher from Concordia University. He said that while the map might seem innocuous, the repeated presentation of images that supported the goals of the Chinese government risk increasing their acceptance by international publics and is therefore a cause for concern.
Oh my god, I'm glad I don't have kids yet, and I know that I'm not to show them this movie, otherwise they'll be like, I think I support China's claims in Southeast Asia now because I saw 9 dashes. Is it actually 9 dashes? That's kind of coincidental.
I don't know, it's exactly
1,
9
2,
dashes.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 8 dashes. Oh, they're sneaky.
It's Jordan Richard however the fuck you say that last name. He's a
white splain.
Honestly, that's the most embarrassing thing I think I've heard anyone say ever. Like that is, I hope China take the South China Sea. I hope they invade Taiwan and take all that territory now, just because of this.
Yeah, I mean, I do like Vietnam though, so you know, it's kind of sad. It's like seeing your parents fighting.
Yeah. Let's get into the plot now. So the film follows Ken and Barbie on a journey of self-discovery through Barbieland and the real world, following an existential crisis for Barbie. It is also a commentary regarding patriarchy and the effects of feminism. Wow, that's great for a kids' movie, isn't it? Now, the thing is, when when you think of a Barbie movie, you would think, oh, it's going to be for like girls, it's going to be for,
babies.
It's going to be for kids who are interested in playing with Barbie, not for like, adults. But apparently that's not the case for this movie. I was thinking that watching it, it's, there's obviously themes that are in this movie that are very interesting to talk about. Shall we say far over the heads of like, 10-year-old girls who might be interested in Barbie.
I can't imagine a child liking this movie at all.
Yeah, I say 10-year-old girls, not that 10-year-old boys would get these themes. It's just obviously Barbie is aimed at girls more than boys, of course.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. But yeah, it's crazy really how adult this movie is and how it's not for kids, which nobody really talked about at the time when it was released, did they?
No, yeah. I think I had it in the back of my mind, but no one was really talking about it. I don't really know if there's like, because it would be interesting if people talked about it, because then, I don't know, like, it would be like interesting to hear Mattel like maybe explicitly be like, we just, didn't care. I mean, the thing is worth noting, there are many, 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 many Barbie movies. There's like Barbie's Winter Christmas Ball, and so like you could just like go onto any like hack website and probably find like lots of, because they make that, it's kind of like cheaply animated direct to video movies about like Barbie inviting friends around. So to be fair, fuck the kids. No, but like they didn't need this because I guess
no, we needed it.
Exactly.
Like 20-something Gen Z for me, millennials for you.
Yeah.
That's who this movie is aimed for. Yes. Yeah. And so we have to deal with the patriarchy, with feminism, and all of this kind of stuff. Baumbach, that's Noah Baumbach, felt he understood the film's purpose once he identified the elements as embracing mortality and sadness and sickness and everything that it means to be human. And I guess that's the central point of the movie, is Barbie goes from this doll, this perfect doll, and actually becomes human.
She gets a vagina.
She self-actualizes. That's a fine thing to happen in the movie. I don't have a problem with that. But yeah, it's just, it's everything around that, which, well, not everything, but stuff around that which I don't like. I don't know, what do you think?
I'm just trying to think if like there's other movies that kind of do this thing of like having someone have this kind of like crisis. Like I'm thinking like Ants and like Bugs Life and things like that. I don't know why I think about the Bugs films, but yeah, I mean it's a perfectly fine premise is all I'll say. In terms of like how well the movie deals with like that aspect, I think it deals with it about as well as it needs to, like that kind of self-actualization stuff, because how much were they really going to get into it?
Yeah. So I want to get into the background regarding this movie. Well, regarding what Greta Gerwig had to say about it. Her inspiration, her thoughts on the movie. And yeah, this is when some of my criticisms will come up. So, opting to acknowledge the controversial nature of the Barbie doll, Gerwig chose to create a film where she would be both, doing the thing and subverting the thing. Good,
like Cuties, which we liked. I just remember like when we reviewed Cuties, you explicitly were like, they're doing the thing.
Yeah. Obviously, you're talking about them, being against, I guess, child exploitation.
Sexualization, yeah.
Sexualization, that's it, yes. But sexualizing children more than any movie I'd ever seen.
Yeah. So we're saying that this movie sexualized children. No. Okay. How specifically would we be saying that this movie is doing the thing? Because I'm not saying that I'm like...
Okay, well, I'll tell you. So she gives more detail. So she continues, in the sense that she would be celebrating the feminism behind Barbie, while also noting the controversial beauty standards associated with it. And you can't do that. I'm sorry. You can't be like, oh yeah, Barbie is great, but also, well, there are some issues with Barbie. And we see that with that, obviously, teenage girl, who has criticisms of Barbie, and then she kind of goes along with the whole, oh yeah, we've got to save Barbie Land. She even says that line in the movie.
Yeah, she kind of gets like those concerns get brushed under the rug.
Yeah, and multiple times I was thinking, you know what, this movie, yeah, it likes to have its cake and eat it. And then I see this quote from Greta Gerwig, basically saying, yeah, I was doing the thing and subverting the thing, which is kind of close to the phrase having your cake and eating it. So I felt vindicated when I saw that from Greta Gerwig. I was like, oh yeah, she's admitting it. She's admitting to what I was criticizing the movie for. And Wikipedia continues, the film deliberately juxtaposed contradictory messaging, such as critiquing consumerism, yet glamorizing plastic products. Yes. And in the film's ending, where Barbie desires to be more than just a plastic doll, but Barbie is also really cool at the same time. The America Ferrera character loves Barbie quite a lot, and obviously, Barbie helps repair the relationship between America Ferrera and her daughter, but also at the same time, you need to be more than just a plastic doll. And I just don't think that a movie can play both sides like that, and it's kind of frustrating to watch, honestly. And I think the reason why Greta Gerwig did this, and it wasn't just subverting. Well, she wanted to subvert Barbie in some aspects because she wanted it to be clever. That's her whole deal. But also, she has to be sincere about how good Barbie is because this is a movie which is meant to promote Barbie, and Mattel would not be happy if it was just taking snarky, ironic shots at Barbie throughout the whole runtime. So you got to do both, and I don't really think that works. So yeah, anything to say on that?
Yeah, I guess I have like three thoughts, which I will express. The fact that this movie is ultimately a promotional product for Mattel is like a worthwhile thing to acknowledge. But it's kind of like everyone knows that going into it, so I don't know. I kind of just view that as like whatever. The other thing I was going to say though is that I think it's interesting because the movie. It's very conspicuously. I think the generous term would be nuanced, and the example I'd use of that is and I know we'll get into it later, but I'll say it now because I think it's relevant, and then we can expand it later. So I'll just say it as quickly as possible. The fact that we're told that the real world is a patriarchy, but then you immediately see Ken walking around so it's a patriarchy, so men are in charge, and yet then he's actually kind of a loser and doesn't really have any power at all, and it's kind of that seems like a bit of a contradiction. But then the other thing I was thinking
that is a good point, by the way.
Yeah, the other thing I was thinking about is that, and again, we'll definitely get into this scene as well, but obviously America Ferrera has a whole speech about how, there's all of these contradictory expectations. You're supposed to be skinny, but not too skinny, and blah, 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 and she says it all, and, we'll probably get into that. But I will say, I think, that kind of means... I think my generous interpretation would be that, in reality, feminism and gender and patriarchy, there is almost that, between a rock and a hard place, things working almost in contradiction but then together situation going on. And I think within that context I don't mind as much that the movie is saying basically, like you say, kind of multiple things at once, having its cake and eating it too, because I think in a way the theme, what it's exploring, I guess the alternative is that they would have to put their flag in the ground and make a concrete message. But then I think...
Yes, that's what they should do, yes.
And I think that the problem with that is that you then run into the question of, does that just end up kind of preachy? Or
no, it doesn't have to be preachy.
It misrepresents things.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could, but, you have to choose a good angle then. You could misrepresent things, but, yeah, as long as, what you're saying is...
I guess as long as you don't.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So there you go. I don't think that's an issue. Gerwig, I'll continue, by the way. So Gerwig
that's fine.
Also desired to provide a counter-argument to Barbie by featuring a scene in which Barbie learns that some women do not like her, and felt it gave the film a real intellectual and emotional power. Oh, did it? And then nobody brings up what that girl said ever again. So yeah, great. Really, stops you in your tracks for a second. Oh wow, is this movie going to tear down the concept of Barbie? Well, it does for that scene, and then after that, no, it doesn't. So there we go. We can just move on then. And I'll bring that up later. Gerwig clearly wanted to do some things with the movie and make it, again, subversive, because that's her whole deal, because, again, she's very clever. And Noah Baumbach to some extent as well. But then we have to make this a movie, again, which Mattel will allow to be released. Some aspects are just frustrating in their, two-sidedness. But anyway, let's get into the script now, Michael. So, what movie does this what movie does Barbie parody at the start?
2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes, and why is that a mistake?
Why is it a mistake?
Because you are referencing a better film in your movie.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It's how you one of my heroes, Uncle Adam, said, do you think that Colin McGregor was afraid, his name's probably Colin McGregor, isn't it, was afraid to talk about other UFC fighters when he was on his way to the top? Well, this movie's on its way to the top.
It just made me think of what a good movie Space Odyssey is,
I rewatched that movie recently. Did we review Charlie, not Charlie, what's his fucking name? Who's the guy who directed that?
Kubrick.
Stanley Kubrick. Did we review one of his films recently?
Yeah.
What was it? It was the bloody thingy, wasn't it? The sex party one. Yeah. So I rewatched 2001: A Space Odyssey for that. So
yeah.
I was prepared.
We've done Eyes Wide Shut on Doctor Strangelove this year.
Yes.
But yeah, so let's just talk about the boldness, I think, of the subtext here. So obviously in 2001, in that scene, which the movie is parodying, the apes are given, this tech from these alien beings, and therefore are allowed to evolve. And so Barbie, this movie, is saying, well, girls, I guess, were given Barbie dolls, and then they started to evolve.
They did, yeah.
The modern feminist movement started because of Barbie. That you can read this opening scene like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not that deep.
Well, I think it's also worth noting you have to give it you have to acknowledge it could be being kind of tongue in cheek.
Well, that's the
obviously
that's the thing. You can't be I don't really mean it like that, because I'm just gonna say maybe it's not that deep, but you have parodied this scene for a reason, and then you can't just turn around and be like, oh no, we were being tongue in cheek. I wasn't being that serious. You can't have it both ways.
Look, I think women can do anything.
You're saying women can have it both ways. Yeah. Women can have their cake and eat it.
That's what Theresa May said. She said that when she was negotiating Brexit, she said that the policy was to have our cake and eat it.
Okay. Yes. But the movie does mark that kind of thinking, with Barbie saying, oh yeah, Barbie was supposed to save the world, it was meant to empower women in the real world, but of course it doesn't. But then Barbie does help out in the real world to some extent, and then wide parody 2001: A Space Odyssey. I guess you may be right, Michael. Maybe just tongue-in-cheek and nothing really matters. And we shouldn't take anything seriously. So there you go. There's a nice get-out-of-jail-free card.
Is the narrator Emma Thompson?
No, it's Helen Mirren.
Who the fuck is Helen Mirren?
What?
I feel like I have heard of her, but I can't think,
what do you mean?
Literally, I know that name.
Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren. What's she up to nowadays? What's she been in?
She's been in Fast and Furious movies.
Oh, yeah. Wait, she's the one who's like, you fucking cunts, let's go do this fucking heist,
that's what she's known for. That's why she's famous. Okay. Fucking hell.
Honestly, I'm looking at her and I do know her name, but I am at the same time she's one of those people who I couldn't really tell you much about her. But the thing is, maybe it's just her British voice seems very kind of sarcastic, but the way she's like, and now with Barbie, women can do anything, and you kind of I mean, would you disagree that it's kind of obvious from the beginning that they're going to subvert that? Because I was always the way she was saying it was women can do anything, and you almost expected a cut to black, right? That's how I kind of felt about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You can say you could say that. I don't know what lane this movie's picking, and whether it's even picking a lane or it's just lol. Wouldn't this be funny? And I don't like that. So anyway, Barbie and her fellow dolls reside in Barbie Land, a matriarchal society populated by different versions of Barbies, Kens, and a group of discontinued models who are treated like outcasts. Yes. Useless eaters, I believe.
Yeah,
in the Barbie world, yes. While the Kens spend their days playing at the beach, the Barbies...
I think you'll find they're working in their professional job, actually.
It does say, considering it their professional.
There we go, good.
The Barbies hold prestigious jobs in law, science, politics, and so on. That is a nice, fun dynamic, and again, it makes sense given the nature of Barbie and Ken. Do you like that concept? Because I think it's kind of good. I think it's a nice way for the movie to start. Honestly,
Yeah. I think the way they kind of introduced this Barbie Land and everything, works kind of with what you would expect. It's the standard thing you look for with the example I'm thinking of is the Lego Movie, where it's one of the things you'd be is, well, we all know certain things about Lego. And I can't think of any examples, but there are things about Lego that anyone who's played with Lego will be aware of, and the Lego Movie hits those things. And this movie, again, I've not played with Barbie, but there's things about what I would imagine to be. Yeah, I know. Actually, you know what? One time I did I watched Terminator 3 with the female Terminator, and I had an Action Man, and I stole one of my sister's Barbies, and I made her be the female Terminator in Terminator 3, and my Action Man was Arnold.
That's based.
I know, yeah. I'm such an alpha. I've actually become more gay as I've gone on. When I was a 5-year-old, I was yeah, fucking Terminator. Oh, look at this monsters fight.
You did make a female a hero, though.
No, it's actually. I guess I was woke.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, I was just gonna say, I like it. I like the dynamic. God, yeah, I do. I mean, I suppose the one thing I would say is I feel in Barbie is Ken I feel Ken probably does have other stuff he does, but I don't know. So, I guess they win because I don't know enough about Barbie to contradict them.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I'd say it does work.
No, I think that is the case in terms of the history of Ken. She is Barbie.
He's just an accessory.
Yeah, he is Barbie's side piece. I think that's fair to say.
He's just a dick appointment.
Well, yeah, kind of, but not really.
He's just a plastic, empty space appointment.
Yeah, that's more accurate, I'd say. So Gerwig wanted to capture... Oh, let's talk about the set now, sorry. Because the set is one of the best things in the movie, so Gerwig wanted to capture what was so ridiculously fun about the dream houses, alluding to its previous models. Everything needed to be tactile because toys are above all things you touch. Gerwig said of the use of practical effects instead of CGI. So yeah, all of that.
Oh, real Christopher Nolan.
All of that was good. Yeah, see, Christopher Nolan, Greta Gerwig, Barbie, Oppenheimer. Yeah, maybe they're more similar than we thought.
Yeah.
The set design is also noted for its extensive use of a specific shade of pink. Can you guess the shade?
Is it called Barbie Pink?
No, it's Pantone 219.
Oh, okay. So it's one of those situations. It's the obviously I can't guess it.
Since Roscoe, the film's paint supplier, faced shortages, the film's sets required the company's entire remaining stock of pink. Yeah, again, this is one of the best things about the movie, of course, and I love that they almost used all the pink in this company's supply. Yeah.
Do you think the economy was risking pinkflation? It's just like a word that has in it. It's not that funny at all. Yeah, I would agree that the set design is fun. It's nice when a movie has like a weird feeling to it. I suppose that's the fun aspect of the comedy as well, like the absurdism, like the way that like she just kind of like levitates to the floor. All that kind of stuff, because obviously, like, there's so many comedies in the world, and sometimes I think we all want a comedy that's just doing something different. And because this movie like leans into the absurd aspects of the fact that these are kind of like, they're sort of like plastic dolls, but then they're sort of like people, that you can't have. There are basically very few potential other movies that could make a lot of these kinds of jokes.
Yeah, and the movie acknowledges that, and of course, we see it play out, and yeah, I think you're right. It is quite fun to see. So that gets a thumbs up from me, So I'm not a hater.
Yeah, in fact, weirdly, you're the one. Basically, what you're saying here, Luke. I'm actually going to defend you from the oncoming feminist mob. Is that you're actually saying that women being funny is a strong point, but what they're shit at is talking about women's rights.
So Ken is only happy when he is with Barbie, of course, and he seeks a closer relationship with her, but she rebuffs him in favor of other activities and female friendships. So Ken.
What a whore!
Ken only wants to impress Barbie and is a loser again. It's a good source of comedy that I think Gerwig recognized, or Noah Baumbach. I'm just going to say Gerwig, when talking about both of them, because she's probably the woman of the house. She's in charge because she's.
What you should do actually is all the time that we're like talking about Barbie Land, you should credit Greta Gerwig, and as soon as we move over to the real world, you should exclusively credit Baumbach.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. But yeah, I think Ryan Gosling, as many people have said, is amazing in this movie. And it was so funny seeing him, of course, nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, and Margot Robbie, for instance, not nominated for Best Actress. And
yeah, even though Margot Robbie is so hot, we hadn't said it yet.
Okay, and of course Greta Gerwig wasn't nominated for Best Director.
Even though Greta Gerwig is so hot.
I was going to say, by the way, I don't think this movie is directed that well, honestly. I actually don't think it's directed well, like in terms of the camera work, those kind of things. I actually was.
Yeah, there's nothing like a big impressive moment.
Well, no, I'm just thinking, competent. Well, there were times in the movie where characters were talking and it wasn't that obvious what they were saying, and things weren't emphasized well, and the camera wasn't in the right place, I felt like.
Okay, I was just going to say that for me, like, I think if I was to criticize if you held a gun to my head and forced me to criticize the directing, what I would probably say is I think like a lot of the movie felt kind of flat. Like it was just a sense of like,
yes. Well, that's another issue. Yes.
I think it kind of actually, in a way, had directing, like the directing itself, not the set design, directing itself was not actually that distinct from, indeed, a standard Will Ferrell movie, or like, your kind of standard Judd Apatow, just like...
It wasn't very cinematic. Honestly, the most cinematic aspects of the movie was the Chevrolet ad in the middle of the movie. That was.
And yet you nitpick that, Luke.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you want to have your cake and eat it.
Yeah,
you want to criticize the movie for not being cinematic.
It was no. It was a great ad, really well shot. Just shouldn't be in the movie. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, Margot Robbie, of course, wasn't nominated for Best Actress, and it was so funny seeing the reaction from, I guess, online people on Twitter specifically who really love this movie because it's a feminist movie, but you nominated the male supporting actor.
Yeah.
That's absurd. How can you do that? Well, of course, for instance, I'm Just Ken song was written by Greta Gerwig. The lines that Ryan Gosling was saying was written. They were probably written by Greta Gerwig. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt on that, and not Noah Baumbach. And she had the final say at least as well. And obviously, it was her choice, Greta Gerwig, to cast Ken. To cast Ryan Gosling as Ken.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ryan Gosling is cast as Ken because of...
What's the word? Like, we're all... It's not we're all on the shoulders of giants. No man is an island. Let's go for that.
Yeah, so Ryan Gosling was put in this position by Greta Gerwig, and I have no doubt that she was very happy he got nominated for Best Supporting Actor. And it was funny when people were like, oh, I can't... Margot Robbie doesn't get nominated, but Ryan Gosling as Ken does. What's going on here? We had to point out at the time, and many people did, the stupidity of this line of thinking, because, of course, you can have two people from the same movie nominated for, Oscars, and Margot Robbie would have to get rid of one of the female nominees for Best Actress, whoever that may be. So, which female actress do you want to... I say female actress. Which actress do you want to kick out from the nominated list to put Margot Robbie in? It was because there were some people who were weirdly attached to the Barbie movie online and
stans.
Yes, and just in a cringy way and a stupid way as well, because it is a toy commercial. More than anything else, that's why it was made. Did you find that funny as well?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I feel like I've got really good at ignoring Twitter recently.
Well, this was like this was several months ago, and again, it's just like this shallow feminism. That's how I'd put it. We want Margot Robbie. I guess that's why Hillary Clinton chimed in. Do you remember? Like she was I can't believe Margot Robbie and Greta Gerwig didn't get nominated. They're just like me, who lost an election to Donald Trump.
I don't know if you noticed, but Margot Robbie won the popular vote.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, it is funny though, because like Ryan Gosling is the best part of this movie.
Yes.
And like, obviously you can say there's kind of like an irony there. You make a movie all about feminism, and then the best part of it is a man.
Yes. Well, again, I wouldn't necessarily consider that funny, apart from the fact that the reaction to this movie was, in some quarters by some, again, feminists who just, again, they're shallow feminists more than anything else, but like, oh no, this is a great movie for women. This is an empowering movie for women. And then, as you said, the ironic thing is Gosling is the best part. Shall we get onto feminism now? Because this movie does, of course, discuss it in some ways. So, Katie Pickles, what a name. I know someone else with the surname Pickles, of course.
Oh, yes, we do, yes.
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Ed Balls.
What?
I used to always get them confused because they both had funny surnames.
Okay, so Katie Pickles of The Conversation said that Barbie shows how the matriarchy can be as bad as the patriarchy. With the Kens being excluded in Barbieland, Pickles further comments that the true heroes were outcasts, such as Weird Barbie and Alan, who deprogrammed the Barbies from tolerating the status quo. She believes that this aligns with Gerwig's conception of feminism, where everybody stands in the sunshine. Yes, just very basic 101 feminism, Everybody should be empowered, And like the matriarchy, is it as bad as the patriarchy? Maybe not. I don't know. Like you'd have to really get into the dynamics of because there is one point in the movie where Margot Robbie says, "I don't know where the Kens live," like implying the Kens might be homeless, which is of course worse than the situation in the real world, where of course the vast majority of women are not homeless, but. And again,
well, I feel like this is the kind of movie that the people who like to say, what's the phrase? Imagine if the roles were reversed. These are the kind of people who, like they would love this movie. They'd be like, imagine if someone made a movie about women being homeless.
What? I see what you mean. Yeah. No, okay. Well, that's the thing. It's the matriarchy is bad, and I think that's what it's very good that this movie says that. I don't know if it's very good. It's just the obvious thing. Yes, there should not be there should not be anarchy. I think that's what we can say, right? Yeah.
Are you saying that you are against any sort of archy? You're a sort of anarchist.
Yes.
Oh wow, this is how you come out as this is how you get snatched up by the police.
No, I'm how about an equal anarchist?
Oh, that's good. I like that. Yeah. A qualicist.
Yeah, a qualarchist. Everything is so equal that there is no anarchist. So back to the plot. Barbie is stricken with worries about mortality, impairing the aura of classic perfection that she has.
Disgusting.
Weird Barbie, a disfigured doll, tells Barbie to find the child playing with her in the real world to cure her afflictions. So yeah, she is malfunctioning, of course, and I guess this was a metaphor for the fact that Barbie was becoming irrelevant, but I was like, no, of course that's not the case, because Mattel wouldn't want that in their movie, that Barbie is irrelevant. So it's just that, yeah, it's a girl who's playing with Barbie who is sad, and therefore she is sad as well. And also that it is implied, of course, throughout the movie and in this scene by Weird Barbie, that normal Barbie, or Margot Robbie, she doesn't want to be a Barbie doll anymore. She wants to be human deep down. She doesn't want to be in this Barbie land, because deep down she understands somehow that the quest for perfection is damaging and futile. The question that I have is, where did this motivation come from? Because again, we're comparing it to The Matrix, which there are similarities.
And there's a reference to it.
Yes, Neo starts to think, there are some things wrong with the world he's living in The Matrix. He doesn't know why, but he can tell things aren't real, and that's why he starts to question, his reality. Does normal Barbie, or Margot Robbie, does she have that moment where she starts to question things? Well, she does at one point say, "Hey, do you ever think about dying?" But there doesn't seem to be any motivation for her to say that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of ironic because obviously she doesn't really have, I guess, agency in that regard. But yeah, I would say that like the whole kind of that aspect of her having her own individual existential crisis is not so explored or substantiated. Like, I don't think you could argue this movie is about Barbie having an existential crisis, because it is obviously something that's not really motivated by her own character.
But that's the thing. I think that's what this movie is about, though.
Because obviously by the end of it, she wants to actually change. Yeah, I kind of am agreeing with you there, because by the end of the movie, obviously, like, it's a big moment that she like decides something about what she wants.
Yes.
But it's kind of like that's kind of a bit in contradiction, in tension, if you like, with the fact that the initial kind of impetus for like her feelings was something that was completely outside of her control.
Well, that's what she says. But there is this line from Weird Barbie where she says, "It takes two to make a portal." Okay. So that's the implication, is deep down she actually did want to become human.
You succeeded at defending your favourite movie, Luke.
No, but I'm saying, so there is this agency that she has, but where does that motivation come from?
Oh, I see. Well, I don't know. Couldn't you ask that about anything?
Well, no, okay, no, but you need something. You need like something for her to start thinking this way,
Oh, yeah, okay, so like some kind of like big jolt moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of with you, because she seems pretty unambiguously satisfied with her life at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. And then she says, "Do you ever think about dying?" And it's like, well, where did that come from? And that's, it's a comedic thing to say, but again, you got to give me some background if you want the character arc to be taken seriously, That's my issue. So Barbie follows the advice, and she travels to the real world after choosing, the sandal, which of course is the Matrix reference, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll get on to philosophy. So Professor of Philosophy, Wiebke Diemling, which is the worst name I've ever heard of.
Yeah, bad name. Yeah.
I don't know what university, who cares. Compared a scene in the film in which Barbie has to make a choice between going back to her perfect life in Barbie Land or learning the truth about her existence in the real world, to The Experience Machine, a thought experiment by philosopher Robert Nozick, which is probably true, but again, I'd say, well, it's just the Matrix, isn't it?
Yeah, that's like, this guy sounds like a right twat.
I think it's a woman.
Okay, yeah. This woman sounds like she's going to be like, actually, the scene at the beginning when the woman is smashing the toys is referring to Label Shlamson's Paradox of the Toy Destroyer in his 1849 novel on existentialism. Like, no, it's not, you moron.
So yeah, basically, her choices, live the truth or continue to live in a dream world, and obviously the right choice in in every movie that presents this issue is you got to choose reality, even if it's not perfect, because perfection is hollow and kind of impossible and boring, I guess, is the response. And yeah, unlike The Matrix, again, there is no interesting explanation as to how to go from Barbie Land to the real world. But as the movie says, just don't think about it. And honestly, for a comedy, I'm fine with that explanation. I don't know if that bothered you or not.
I feel like there was a specific kind of line that I found uniquely funny, but I suppose if I can't remember it now. But yeah, it was about the whole, like, it doesn't make sense thing. But yeah, that's always kind of nice when a movie that's intentionally silly breaks the fourth wall a bit to be like, yeah, we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Funny stuff.
Yeah, that's fine. So Alyssa Wilkinson of Vox compared Barbie Land to the biblical Garden of Eden, with Barbie and Ken as inverted parallels of Adam and Eve. Is that true? I mean, I guess so, but I don't know how that connects to the movie.
I wouldn't. Yeah, that sounds like overthinking it. Also, it just reminded me that I saw like a tweet today from someone who was like had an Israeli flag, and they were like, "Why are these monsters trying to destroy the beautiful Garden of Eden?" And that's just like, no, I'm done with things being compared to the Garden of Eden today.
Yes. So after arriving in Venice Beach, Barbie punches a man after he gropes her, gets arrested, etc. Okay, look, I know that the point is the real world is not like Barbie Land at all.
Are you going to say that it's a little bit over the top?
Yeah. Do you agree?
I would agree that it's over the top. It's like one of those things. So I have two opinions on this that are in contradiction, but not exactly, because you can synthesize them. Which is that, like, obviously this movie in general is pretty, let's say, overt with its messaging, and for the most part, I would say, well, because this movie is like very obviously silly, like generally you can excuse it. I will say in this particular case, obviously the fact that the point is that they've just entered the real world, and yet obviously you still have this kind of cartoonish over the topness. Like, this is the moment where it like most sticks out to me. Because obviously, like, as soon as they go to like Mattel, and it's like, you know, you can say, oh, it's like this company, and like, you know, they're kind of, well, they're sort of sexist, but sort of not, which again we'll get into. But like, you know, every other moment, because there's all sorts of like silly, over the top, unrealistic stuff happening in this movie, obviously. But like that moment, because it's specifically like, oh, we've entered the real world. I think it's especially kind of silly that they're so over the top.
You said silly. That's the word I had written down as well. Yeah, the construction workers as well. Just right. I get what you're saying, but this could be executed a lot better. And I guess you're going for this, you know, stupid angle to things in the real world, but I don't think that works that well.
Yeah.
Also,
I mean, the thing is, like, there are like some funny, well, I guess funny lines. Like, basically just like, oh, you know, you think a construction worker would, or a construction site would be like really feminist, blah blah blah. I guess it's just saying something that's not true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Also,
classic.
Also, Barbie and Ken slowly start to realize that, you know, the real world, of course, is not like Barbie Land, but it should be an immediate shock. I mean, remember, they believe because of Barbie Land, the real world should be a feminist paradise. But of course, it's anything but that. And they just don't seem to acknowledge that or care.
Yeah, I like when they see the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
But that's the point. It should be a massive deal for them that,
yeah,
the real world is not like Barbie Land. And eventually Ken, you know, has these moments where he's like, oh, wow, men are respected here. But women... women being, you know, not in charge should have a profound effect on Barbie, and that never really happens, does it?
Yeah, like, she's kind of like, if anything, it's like she's more upset just about the personal angle of like the fact that, you know, obviously she hasn't brought about feminism, but the fact that in general the world is so unequal, yeah, is not something that directly impacts her. I would agree with that. I don't know. Yeah, I suppose maybe you could say, like, she's still supposed to be kind of like a bit. I'm gonna have to use the word airheaded, because that's the only word I can think of. Such that, like, you know, maybe it's, I guess, in character for her to be like so self-obsessed that she's just completely overwhelmed by thinking about it in terms of like, but I'm Barbie and I was supposed to make everything better.
Yeah, no, I agree. Barbie in this movie, like all women, are bimbos.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Ken learns about patriarchy and feels respected for the first time. Again, these scenes are quite good. Again,
I love the bit when he gets asked for the time. He's like, and he's like, just like, no, I do not know the time.
Like I said here, the comedy is at its best with Ryan Gosling as Ken. You gave an example there. Yeah, it's fish out of water, of course, but with this twist.
I mean, Ryan Gosling also, like, in general, it's really fun to see him do any kind of performance, because he's like famous for doing, you know, all sorts of different like roles. Like, one of the things I wrote down, which was kind of funny. Well, I know, but like there are actors who aren't there? But the thing is, one thing I wrote down is like, I was like, I like how like when Ryan Gosling, like, he leans into the patriarchy, he just becomes Ryan Gosling from Drive. He's just like, oh yeah, cool, yeah, whatever. Like, he like, it's just, and I was like thinking about it, I was like, oh man, this is like literally what every single person who, like every single man who watches Drive, this is what they try to do.
Yeah, I did try to do that, it didn't work. So Megan Garvey of The Atlantic found that Ken and his journey of self-discovery mimics adolescence. So yeah, we're going to talk about masculinity now, because
I mean, this is really big with the whole you know, like kids being into Andrew Tate thing.
Yes, because obviously this movie talks about feminism. Well, it just, you know, doesn't talk about it. It has themes of feminism, which you would expect in a Barbie movie. Well, maybe not expect, but definitely expect it in this movie. But also, yeah, this movie talks about masculinity, or has themes around it. So, like any teenager, this is Megan Garber, Ken is figuring out who he is. Garber concluded that Ken embodies a core idea in the film that patriarchy is a profound form of immaturity, which I would not necessarily disagree with. it's certainly like American like masculinity, or what you would consider like traditional American like masculinity, which of course is like, you know, almost synonymous with the patriarchy in America. It does feel quite immature at times. Certainly, the culture over there is different to the culture over here in the UK. So I wouldn't really disagree with that. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, I'd like absolutely agree, because like I've been thinking about this so much every single day of my life. No, not really, but the whole thing about like the fact that in many ways like masculinity, it's kind of cringe, and like the central contradiction of it is that like with masculinity, obviously it's supposed to be you're strong, you're powerful, you're in charge, and yet at the same time it manifests in like the fact there's all loads of stuff you can't do, even like things that it's really stupid for you not to be able to do. So like that idea of basically saying that masculinity is basically immature and embarrassing. Yeah, it is. Like when you think about like a kind of typical like American MAGA person who like makes a big deal out of how manly they are. Things like, oh god, like men who like refuse to eat vegetables because it's like, I can't eat meat, I'm a carnivore, and it's like, for God's sake, just get some nutrients in you. But like that's the thing, like how embarrassing. It's not just that it's stupid and like unhealthy, but it's like literally embarrassing. Yeah. So yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. I think that's true. So Jean Guerrero, I hope I said that right, presented a subtext to the film's feminist exterior in which a world that disregards men and their feelings is an inverted form of patriarchy and also cruel. Yeah, I think that's true. And added, the film is a rare product of mainstream culture that invites men to imagine masculinity for its own sake, or for their own sake. It acknowledges the identity crisis and loss of hope, economic promise and life purpose among American men. I mean, it kind of acknowledges that, like through Ryan Gosling just being completely unqualified for everything. So, yeah, I mean, kind of. These struggles are often ignored by progressives, but poisonously exploited by right-wing manfluencers like Andrew Tate.
I
know, I've never heard that term before.
It's a fine term.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I guess so. The movie kind of does acknowledge that. And, but the movie, I think, is saying, you know, men, hey, don't be morons like Ken and get drawn into this masculinity thing because it's immature and it's toxic as well, I guess. You know, it's stupid. But they deserve more than what the Kens get in Barbie Land. You know, they deserve to self-actualize as well, which, of course, happens at the end.
I wanted to say, like, I like the fact, because obviously, like, the standard kind of dumb take on a patriarchy is, like, people thinking, like, oh, so you're, like, people treating it as if it's a conspiracy theory. Like, I've often heard, like, anti-feminists, like your hero Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, say, like, patriarchy is a conspiracy theory. And obviously, it's not. It's, like, a much more nuanced systemic critique. So I think within that context, it's kind of worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I guess to the film's credit that we see kind of, like I say, Ken here like, oh, this must mean that men are in charge and we can just be very explicit about it. And then obviously, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to him, obviously, there is a patriarchy. And I guess it's, you know, it's not, the world in which Ken comes from is more matriarchal than the real world is patriarchal. So again, there's a scale here. But yeah, obviously, just back to what I was saying before, I think, yeah, the movie does kind of, you know, acknowledge this idea that, yeah, men shouldn't go down this Andrew Tate path, but also, you know, they have to be respected as well, and they have to, you know, be confident in themselves, and that's fine. And again, it seems quite obvious, but for a Barbie movie, which again is, you know, going into issues around feminism, and, you know, the whole concept of Barbie, of course, is, you know, linked with feminism in many ways. It's quite unexpected that this movie would take this angle regarding masculinity, but I'm glad Greta Gerwig or Noah Baumbach or whoever decided to pursue this Ken character arc, because again, I think it is the best thing in the movie, honestly, and it really does make that movie that bit better and make it enjoyable. Like whenever Ken's on the screen, you know, for whatever reason, I enjoy it. So yeah, I'm really glad they included this theme of masculinity with Ken. So I guess you agree, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't really directly acknowledge what you said about that whole, like, you know, men do have struggles, but having now acknowledged it just then, I would just say that I pretty much agree with everything you just said.
Yeah, again, obvious, you know, an obvious thing to say, but kind of unexpected for this movie to do that.
Yeah, and like, again, like, I guess, like, the other thing is when you imagine this movie in the context, I mean, like you kind of said, there's all these cringe feminists, I guess, you know, obviously we would clarify, you know, kind of feminists who aren't particularly sophisticated in their kind of thinking, you know, whereas obviously there are theorists who are, but saying like this incredibly like reductive idea of, well, if a man gets nominated for the movie, then that's bad for women, blah blah blah. Like when you think about, there's so many people out there like this or like that. The fact that we get a much more nuanced portrayal of things in this movie is a relief, because it easily could have not gone that way.
Yeah. No, I agree. So Barbie tries to track down her owner, and she figures it out, of course. But do you remember the scene where she's sitting on the bench and looking around at humans, and she's happy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she's happy, yeah. And she says to an old lady, "You are beautiful," which is, if you think about it, a crazy thing to say because of, Barbie's beauty standards.
Yeah.
But again, this scene is meant to show her character arc. She wants all that humanity has to offer, or she's attracted to what humanity is. And that's fine, I guess. But again, I just feel like the issue is the character arc happens so quickly. Like, it's such a rapid change from before. You consider if Barbie saw like an old woman, considering the world she comes from.
So like she literally screamed at that Crazy Spice woman.
Yes.
Well, it's not Crazy Spice. What was her name?
Yes. Weird Barbie.
That's it.
Crazy Spice. What the fuck? That's a weird thing to say.
I mean, like, I get where I was coming from there. I was thinking about, like, Barbie and Spice Girls are kind of similar. They're both like power feminism, and one's crazy, one's weird.
Okay, fine. But you think, she would think, oh my god, I'm going to turn into that, considering how beautiful I am. And again, it's just too rapid a change.
I am in agreement.
Yeah.
I think if I were to, if I were in the business of fixing movies, I honestly think like that whole scene, I don't really think it adds much and is particularly necessary. Because, obviously you could say, well, it's doing something in service of the overall conclusion, but like you say, it's not really, because it's almost like, if anything, more rapid and therefore less justified than her decision at the end anyway.
I agree. So Barbie tracks down her owner then, a girl named Sasha, who criticizes Barbie for encouraging unrealistic beauty standards and calls her a fascist. Obviously, the movie is going over the top with these criticisms, and you could say, well, that's letting Barbie off the hook by the fact that Sasha goes so far with her criticisms. But, Gerwig knew there would be these criticisms if they weren't addressed in the movie, and therefore, well, here you go, here's this character saying this line, so you can't then criticize the movie for not acknowledging the issues with Barbie, because there's that line. But again, these issues with Barbie that Sasha brings up, again, like I said before, are not brought up again, and indeed, I think they're just forgotten about. Because I think it would be too cringy and basically, corporate bootlicking to directly rebuff the points that Sasha was making. Then, of course, the movie wouldn't be subversive and it wouldn't be clever. But these points can't be proven to be correct, as obviously then Mattel wouldn't be happy with that either. So I guess the uneasy compromise, is this whole storyline about Barbie and unrealistic beauty standards. It's just kind of forgotten. Nobody thinks about it again. Nobody talks about it again, and it's done. It's over. That's it. That's all you're getting, that scene. So you can't say the movie doesn't acknowledge it as an issue. But yeah, again, this is one of my issues with the movie as a whole. Do you agree?
Yeah, I don't actually have quite as immediately or directly of a cynical interpretation. I do think, obviously, like I've already said, like, you're right that Mattel would kind of have this attitude, but I also think in a way there is a less cynical interpretation, which I think is I think it just happens to line up with what Mattel would want, because I think, like, if you're going to make a movie about Barbie and you're going to go down this route, you're going to have to acknowledge the fact that people do think of Barbie as this kind of, the unrealistic standards and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is, the reason for acknowledging it, I don't think it's like lampshading or just to basically, I think it's just that, like, the movie wants to acknowledge it because in some sense this movie is about the impact of Barbie in the real world. So you have to acknowledge it for that reason. So I guess the more important question is, like, why then don't they go into it? And I kind of think, yes, obviously they couldn't really go into it exactly. I mean, they could have, to be fair, like, had a cringy moment where a character does say, like, being beautiful is powerful or something like that. I don't know. But I think, like, the other aspect of it is that, honestly, there's so much else going on by the end that it was very difficult to wrap up the story for this girl.
That's convenient.
I'm just like thinking to myself, like, again, if you sat me down and said, you gotta rewrite the ending, I would be like, oh, it's gonna be quite a challenge to make it.
Just don't have that scene then, or don't have her say those specific words. You can have this character Sasha just be just think, oh no, Barbie's, I've grown out of that. I don't care about that anymore. I care about other things.
Yeah, I think the better way like to do it would be to like not have her be so angry about it. Like to kind of be like, this is how I would do it as a genius, who should be in charge of writing every single movie. I'd have her be like, kind of say that like, oh, I don't really care, and then be like, also, Barbie, it's like traditional beauty standards and that's bad. Like kind of like say it as like well, we all know the problem with Barbie, rather than saying, because the other weird thing about it, like it is very weird that she's like a cynical character and that she hates Barbie, and yet she's simultaneously like willing to converse with this woman, because I guess at this point she still thinks she's just like a crazy woman, but she's like willing to converse with her as if she is Barbie, which is kind of dumb.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
yeah, whatever.
I don't know. Like I said, so Mattel are of course in this movie, so let's talk about them. So, alarmed by the doll's presence in the real world, the CEO of Mattel orders their recapture. Mattel they're just absolutely skewered, aren't they, Michael? In this movie,
it is pretty funny.
They're all men, aren't they?
Yeah, that is funny.
All men. That's good. That's clever.
Yeah, and they all got nominated for Oscars.
The script also contains candid criticisms of Mattel, this is from Wikipedia, which created skepticism among Mattel officials when they received their first version. Or I'm sure they were quaking in their nice manly boots, reading this script. However, Brenner noted that being safe in this world doesn't work, as she, so that's a female by the way, who's high up in Mattel, interpreted Barbie to be a bold and trailblazer figure. As a result, Will Ferrell's portrayal as the Mattel CEO was meant to be an allegory for corporate America. There you go. And corporate America was never the same again. Kreese, I don't know who Kreese is. Maybe he's the CEO of Mattel, because I know it is a man. Praised Ferrell and said that while Mattel officials took their brand seriously, they did not take themselves seriously.
Oh, that's really cool.
So, you know what, Mattel, you're all right. I think I will buy a Barbie doll now.
Yeah. I will say this. I mean, look, at the end of the day, if there's going to be a company that's going to make themselves look good, at least it's a company that brings joy to children by selling them toys. Like, at least this movie wasn't called Oil.
Okay. A sign of great satire, I think, is when the people you are satirizing can laugh along with you. I think, and again, it's the issue with this movie. You're meant to be taking shots at these guys, but you're not really, because the fact that they allowed these shots to be taken in a movie kind of implies that the shots you are taking, they aren't that damaging, and they kind.
Yeah, but you got to bear in mind we also live in a world of post-irony. So does anything really mean anything?
Things should mean stuff. But yeah, it's not a toy commercial, you see, because it's taking these very decisive shots at Mattel. They'll never recover. So, but no, why are Mattel even in this movie? Because again, I've kind of mocked the fact that Greta Gerwig and also Noah Baumbach, they really wanted to make this movie so clever, and they wanted to make it meta and subversive. That's the key word. They wanted to make it subversive, so we have to have Mattel in the movie. So therefore we can get one over on them, and we can show we're not just corporate bootlickers, or this is not just a commercial. Even though again I think the satire is kind of toothless. Do you think I'm being too cynical here, Michael?
I think sometimes you're being a bit too cynical. Well, not necessarily. I just think like it's a case of I think it's also reasonable to imagine that they would just like, well, what's like a good thing for Barbie to do when she enters the real world? I guess she could go see the people who made her.
You're too naive. Like
you're too cynical.
You're too naive. Again,
this is what it always comes down to. My naivety versus your cynicism.
What did Gerwig say? She wanted to do the subversive thing, but also the genuine thing, or whatever. Like she admitted she wants to have her cake and eat it. So this is a prime example of that. Again, so many examples of it. Someone agrees with me, by the way, just to let you know. And this person who agrees with me.
Oh, that's definitely a woman's
name. It is Madeline Coleman. That's who it is. So. She wrote in the New Yorker, New York Magazine, which is not the New Yorker, Life in Plastic, which was an article criticizing Barbie. And this is an extract from that article, which I agree with. So, you have to give it to Greta and her boyfriend. I love that. For their
she sounds like a bitter cat lady.
For their depiction of the Mattel execs. By writing the movie's all-male boardroom as a bunch of bumblers, outsmarted at every turn by Barbie and her human friend America Ferrera, whose role here is just mom. The movie encourages us to believe that it isn't part of an elaborate marketing strategy, that simply watching it means getting one over on the suits. It's an incredible sleight of hand. How could those dum-dums control Greta when they can't even rollerblade? Same goes for putting all the criticism of Barbie in the mouth of a petulant teen, the one who famously calls Barbie a fascist, then gives into pink anyway. Yes, indeed. And I think it's having the criticisms come from this character as well is something that I didn't talk about, but yeah, that needs to be acknowledged as well. So yeah, I agree with all of that. Again, this movie could have been okay, but the fact that it has to try and take these or has to try and skewer Mattel while not actually doing that is for me. I'll say it again, kind of pathetic. Honestly, that's how I feel.
I would also say, like, I feel like Mattel, I would agree with the idea that Mattel is, like, just taken as a stand-in for corporate America. Like, I don't think, because obviously it's, like, such a generic building and blah, blah, blah. But, like, I don't know. I mean, the thing about, like, that comment there is it's kind of like, I just feel like it's acting as if this movie's trying to do something which I don't think it could possibly be taken as actually doing, because no one's going into this, like, under any illusions about the fact that this is basically just a commercial.
No, that was... that was... a part of the marketing. It was definitely, look at, these Mattel execs, and Barbie's getting one over on them. You saw that in the trailer. That was definitely part of it. That's Greta Gerwig's again, and Noah Baumbach as well. I won't forget him. It's the whole deal of like, how clever they are, like how, again, subversive they can be. That is so central to, again, I think why people talked about this movie quite a bit and why it grossed quite a lot of money was this aspect. Because people like meta stuff, people like funny, clever, subversive stuff, even when it's not actually that subversive. Because it makes them feel smart. But
I don't know. It sounds like people who like to criticize fun movies like to seem smart to me. It sounds like people who like to say, well, this movie tricked loads of people with their Mattel skewering.
Yeah.
But they didn't trick me because I'm smart.
Well, yeah.
Well, Luke, they did trick me because I'm smart. I actually think that the Mattel executives weren't even aware this movie was released. I think they felt their faces were mighty red when it was.
Okay. So Mattel, of course, attempts to put Barbie back in the toy box for remanufacturing. Mattel, of course, wants to control Barbie, but she, again, wants to be a human, so she rejects, getting back in the box. And, it is confusing why she tries to escape, because, again, she is really not happy being in this world, and she wants to go back, and she wants to, be, again, remanufactured, as it were. But then she decides, no, actually, I don't want that.
Yeah, I think I can just buy into the idea that on some level there's like an existential dread from just like knowing that you're going to be brainwashed. Can you just
buy into that? Yeah.
Yeah, I can buy into that.
Right.
Like, it's like, I don't think, like, basically, I feel like it's the fact that they come across as a little bit, what's the word? Like, they're too eager to be like, oh, go in this box. Like, maybe she was willing to go along, but then she was like, oh, I'm being put in this box. I don't know, it's just something about it. It just rubs me the wrong way.
To go from that to escaping is such a dramatic change, considering she wanted so badly to just go back to how things were in that moment. And again, you got it.
I don't know. It's like when people get married and then they really want it, but then they run away because they just have cold feet at the last minute.
Oh, okay, right, fine.
Not speaking from experience.
Yeah. Obviously, just give me like a vision or something. Give me her, a flashback. Her thinking about something when she's getting in that box. Because again, it just feels. Lazy almost. Just again, you can maybe trust the audience to buy that she's having an existential crisis, but actually, put in the work. That's all I'm asking. And the whole thing is quite silly, and I don't know really. Like, why do they not like that the Ken houses are selling? And why is there a connection? But
he's like, well, we just care about women, which I love. That was great.
But again, that
was some real skewering.
So there you can see where my cynicism comes in. It's like, what Mattel really care about women, and that's the joke. They care so much about women, they're ready to sacrifice their profits. That's really funny. That's again, it's not that good, is it? If you're trying to skewer these guys, it actually makes them look kind of good if you think about the joke a bit more.
Yeah, I do like that, because they're like, no, we got into this business not to make money, but to make every single woman have a dream.
Yes, I like being in little girls' dreams or something is the line.
It's not in a creepy way.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a funny line, but just think about it a bit more then. But anyway, so Ken returns to Barbie Land to persuade the other Kens to take over. The Kens indoctrinate the Barbies into submissive roles such as agreeable girlfriends, housewives, and maids. Barbie arrives and attempts to convince the Barbies to be independent. When her attempts fail, she becomes depressed. Again, I think that's a fun concept, honestly. Like, the Kens coming back to, or the Ken, Ryan Gosling, coming back to Barbie Land and changing things to a patriarchy. And you could say, well, why do the female Barbies, well, just the Barbies, of course, why do they accept their new role as, the submissive Barbies, the submissive, I guess, gender in this new society?
Yes. Some might say bimbos.
Yes, and deeming this is the professor from before, observed that gender in Barbie Land is performative, noting how the Kens behave before and after a patriarchy is established, and therefore maybe all gender is performative. Maybe that's the real answer to all of this, you know? Thinking of how things switch so quickly in Barbie Land, maybe that's the message, which I kind of like, if that is the case, if that's what the movie is trying to say. And
yeah, I mean, so obviously, like, the thing is, like, it's worth noting they have the whole thing about smallpox, and like the fact that basically it just changes really quickly because they had no defense for it, which is like a fun idea. I guess like the thing is, because I was like thinking to myself, like the one thing this movie has to avoid is like having it so like women are just like naturally decide to go along with patriarchy as if it's like it's their natural role. So good job, they dodged a bullet.
Yeah,
there.
But also you consider how the Kens were before, and now the Barbies are, you know, being oppressed. Basically, you know, there is no natural order. I think that's maybe the point I would agree with if the movie is making that point. Yeah, there is no natural order, you know. And again, I think it's a good message if we go a little bit further about the real world, how maybe the patriarchy that exists in the real world can be changed quite quickly. You know, it doesn't have to be how it is, which, yeah, is something the movie doesn't really go into. But, you know, if you think about it a bit more, maybe that could be a message. So, yeah, Barbie feels sad because she isn't a doctor or a Supreme Court justice, and she doesn't feel pretty for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, and then we get the speech which earned America Ferrera a supporting actress nomination at the Oscars. Gloria, of course, the character, expresses her frustration with the conflicting standards women are forced to follow in the real world. Gloria's speech restores Barbie's confidence. I will read some of the article from that Madeline woman. What was she called? Don't want to get her name wrong.
McCann?
No, not Madeline McCann. Madeline Coleman. Another extract from that article. She says, it's sort of scary that people cry at the speech. It's literally impossible to be a woman, which writer Alison P. Davis calls feminism baby food. Yeah, this speech is cringy. It is, yes, feminist baby food, and it doesn't even make sense. But anyway, go on. Tell me what you think about the speech before I go into that.
Well, you know the famous story about this, don't you? Wait, do you know the famous story about this?
Tell me anyway.
So it's the fact that when I was at the cinema and this came on, I was thinking to myself, this is kind of cringy. And then, in the best moment I've ever experienced watching a movie, the audience started clapping, which was fantastic. Yeah, it is. It's very much on the nose. The only saving grace is that, obviously, like I say, this movie is not subtle in general. I think the issue with this, though, like, to me, what bothers me is not so much that it's so unsubtle, but that it's so sincere and earnest. Because obviously, yeah, like I say, the movie is very, you know, I've already said it, over the top, ridiculous. But within that context, having this, you know, it doesn't really work. The thing is, what I will say is that later on, when it's kind of like they're capturing the Barbies and America's like giving her speech to them, in that context, it's more digestible because it's kind of silly, like the idea that these Barbies. And I was like thinking to myself, like, if they really had to do this, I think like that would have been a better way to go, where it's like instead of her saying it in that, like, you know, that moment, that big moment, it was like basically, oh, I know what we need to do to get these women sorted. We need to have a woman explain why actually patriarchy is bad for women. And then you can have like little snippets of her making these points. Like, you know, you have to be pretty, but not too pretty. And I think in that context, I would have found it much easier to digest because it wouldn't have had that saccharine layer of earnestness.
Yeah, no, I agree. Also, you're talking about the actual speech, right?
Yes.
I want to talk about how it comes about, because Barbie is sad, okay, right? Because again, she doesn't feel pretty. She again is, because she is not a doll anymore in Barbie Land. You know, she understands herself, like she's becoming human. So she's again having these, you know, human emotions, and that's why she's unhappy. You know, not because she's a woman.
That's a good point too. Yeah,
it's a whole fucking different thing. And that's what was so frustrating. It's because this is the doll who's becoming human, and therefore she's realizing she's not perfect, and therefore that's why she's sad and upset. And it's not because she's a woman. And America Ferrera Gloria in this movie, as the character is, it just goes on this whole again, it's like a rant almost, but you can call it a speech if you like, which has nothing to do with the situation that Barbie's in, because Barbie is, you know, she's not sad because she's like under a patriarchy. She was the one who was, out of all the Barbies, of course, she was, you know, the one railing against the patriarchy. She was saying,
that's
all of this patriarchy stuff in Barbie Land is bullshit. But she herself feels like it's undervalued or she doesn't feel like happy with herself, because she's not this perfect Barbie anymore, because she's not a doll, because she's a human. So even so that's what I understood her issues to be. So again, it's got
no, I agree.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with her being a woman. So again, the speech is just awful for so many reasons. It's the worst thing in the movie.
Yeah, I'll also say this. Like, I was thinking about it. I was like, the thing is that like applies to everything. Like this idea, because it is like a valid point that like because essentially it's about. Like, the main thing I remember, I kind of zoned out, but it's like, basically, you're supposed to be this thing, but not too much this thing. Like, that's the things you keep saying. Like, you're supposed to be a mother, but not, like, too much of a mother or whatever, blah, blah, blah. The thing is, like, you can almost say that about anything. Yeah. Like, I mean, obviously, like, maybe this is a bit of an insult thing to say, and, like, don't hang me or whatever, but you could make the point of, like, someone could legitimately say, as a man, you're supposed to be confident, but not too confident or else you're arrogant.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, you know, like, things like that,
Yeah,
and it's like, well, that's true. It's like what Aristotle said, right? Like, basically, was something like he said, like, virtue is always like the mean between two extremes.
Again, it's like I said, it's feminist. Well, like, I didn't say it.
Baby food.
Someone else did. Alison P. Davis. It's feminist baby food, and it's fucking ridiculous that again so many people thought it was a great speech, and it's an indictment on, I guess.
You hate women.
Well, I was gonna say an indictment on modern women, but I didn't want to go that far. I didn't want to be so offensive, but it is an indictment on something, something or other. If the fact that this speech got the reaction it did. Then Barbie says something about giving a voice to cognitive dissonance and therefore you robbed it of its power. That line is just fucking horrendous. Like, this whole scene is horrendous. That line is just horrendous. Like, when
although maybe I'm being my memory is that it's kind of like the joke is that she's saying, well, she like says afterwards, like, oh, I can't believe I said that. So there's at least a bit of a joke there about the fact she shouldn't be saying that.
But that's the thing, she shouldn't be saying that. Why is she saying it though? Like, she shouldn't be saying that, yes, and that's the joke, but does it make sense that this character would say that? No, it doesn't. You can't make a joke out of it after. But whatever. Again, the ending of the movie, we'll go through this quite quickly. So obviously, they managed to stop the patriarchy by tricking the stupid men, because she obviously Gloria tries to free the Barbies from their indoctrination, and then the Barbies manipulate the Kens into fighting amongst themselves. Having now experienced systemic oppression for themselves, the Barbies resolve to rectify the faults of their previous society, emphasizing better treatment of the Kens and all outcasts. So there you go. That's all it took, a bit of a revolution, and they got better rights, didn't they? So is there a lesson there, Michael?
Yeah, the lesson is that if you want to make society perfect, then you've got to oppress both sides first, and then eventually you'll work it out. This is why I look forward to the matriarchy.
Barbie and Ken apologize to each other, acknowledging their mistakes. When Ken bemoans his lack of purpose, Barbie, encourages him to find an autonomous identity. And then what does his hoodie say at the end? But yeah, the point is he's fine just being Ken. The whole thing of, I'm just Ken. No, I'm just Ken, and that's okay. So I like that flip. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's I am Knuff.
Yeah. And there you go. I think that's what I meant.
Because there were like a few like Ken themes that came out. I mean, obviously there was Kenergy. Yes. Sorry, the themes are puns as well.
Honestly, I thought that Ken song, I'm Just Ken, should have been at the start of the movie. I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Because obviously I remembered the song is very famous, and I was like thinking to myself, like, when does it appear? When it does appear is a bit weird because it's in the middle of like the fight scene.
Yeah. It should be at the end. Sorry. It should be at the beginning, not the end. It should be when Ken's just been rejected by Barbie when she's going to her sleepover.
Yeah. And then it sets up like his conflict in advance of the whole realizing that actually men are awesome.
Yes, exactly. Yes, there we go. I was really surprised because I saw the song before watching the movie. I was really surprised the song was at the end and not at the beginning of the movie. So yeah. Barbie, who remains unsure of her own identity, meets with the spirit's Ruth Handler, who explains that Barbie's story has no set ending and her ever-evolving history surpasses her roots. Yes, and there's that cringy line, you can be whipped around... Sorry, no, this is from that article again. You can be whipped around by its messaging about motherhood, and this is the line, on the one hand, women are more... Sorry, this is not the line. On the one hand, women are more than moms, and on the other, mothers stand still so that their daughters can look back and,
see how far they've come.
Yes.
Yeah, that was like a funny line. Or like it was. I will say this. At least that line, like it felt like substantial, which isn't to say it was correct, but it's like I was like, oh, that's kind of like it's an interesting idea to express. But then you think about it, like it doesn't really make exactly much sense, right? Because it's like we need like the older black people to stay slaves so that the younger black people can see how far they've come.
Yes. Mothers stand still. That's the really weird phrase. So, okay, when you become a mother, you have to give up your career then. Is that what this movie's saying?
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's like, yeah, again, it's like a classic thing of like a line that sounds, like I say, kind of almost profound. You're like, oh wow, like yeah, wow. But then like you really think about it for a second.
Yeah,
like,
it's just really weird. Again, just the feminism in this movie is, it's not very deep and pretty poor and honestly quite anti-feminist. that line. But yeah, then so Barbie apparently now feels like she wants to be human, and she goes and obviously is in the real world now, and then has a gynecologist appointment, confirming that she has a vagina, and yeah. There we go. We're all happy. We're all happy. Barbie has managed to self-actualize.
Yeah. I will say that this movie, and you're going to balk at this, and you're going to make fun of me for saying it, but I think it's a valid point. This movie isn't necessarily helped by talking about it. No, but the thing is,
yeah, no, go on.
I know. Yeah, you're going to put that as like your no, but the thing is, I do mean that in a way which isn't entirely insulting to the movie, because I think that the movie has like a good feeling and a good energy, and I actually did find the movie quite funny. Again, it would have been made us this podcast even longer if I would have just said, "Oh, I found this bit funny. I found this bit funny." So eventually, I was like, "I'm just not going to mention it." But that is like a big positive for me. I'll also say this, because obviously we've spoken a lot. I don't really care that much about this film as a criticism of Barbie, so much as I think the film. I think the best way to view the film in terms of what I would say I liked about it is viewing it more as like Barbie's like a. What's the word? Oh, bloody hell, just a representation, I guess, of like feminism stuff. And with that said, yeah, this film has some cringe stuff about feminism. I guess I'm just gonna have to give it a number. And for me, Luke, it's a high 6.
Okay, that's fine.
Which is definitely higher than your movie.
I'm gonna give it a 5.5. So we're not that far away, are we? No. Yeah, and I guess the reason why again I dislike it a bit more is because I think I'm a bit more cynical and dislike having your cake and eat it. I think it's cowardly, it's pathetic in some instances, and there are some good moments in the movie. Again, I think it is quite funny in parts, especially Gosling. It is quite bad in some parts. Obviously, the speech by Gloria, or whatever she's called, and there are some contradictions and themes. So I think again the masculinity theme is good. The feminism theme could be better. Yeah, and again the character arc of Barbie again could be better. If this movie was just about Ken, this would be a 10 out of 10. You
don't mean a Ken out of 10?
I was just about to say that, god damn it. Yeah. It would be a 10 out of 10, but, because it's about Barbie mainly, it's only a 5.5. So, yeah, that's something...
Yeah, they put women in it, and that's got...
Yes, indeed. So, again, I just find the whole conversation around the movie, though, it's pretty ridiculous, honestly. Like, people elevating it to something that it's not. The fact that it got nominated for Best Picture, it's ridiculous, but I guess there've been worse movies nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to be so harsh on it, but I guess I just need to, take it, go against the grain in some respects, which, again, the first time I watched it, I was like, wow, really? This is what people are going mad about? And again, my opinion hasn't changed. It's an okay movie. It just annoys me quite a bit with some of the things in it. So 5.5 is fair. What are we doing next time?
Next week we're doing Goldfinger.
Yeah, Goldfinger, James Bond. We have a feminist movie, and then we have a good old masculine movie. We love to see it. Anyway, we've been selecting and reflecting on Barbie, the highest grossing movie of 2023, a feminist masterpiece. Some might say. I don't think we agree with that. But join us next week for definitely a masculine masterpiece. In Goldfinger.
Absolutely. Goodbye.